Okay, so let us begin. So we are going to discuss, good afternoon. Once again, we are going to discuss for this afternoon our second to the last topic for the prelim in Linguistics 1, which is semantics. Sorry. So we start by defining semantics before we jump into the different sense relations or sense properties of semantics. If you can remember, we already discussed in briefly, although briefly, when I discussed the overview of linguistics, the different branches under microlinguistics. So semantics is one of them, and it is the study of linguistic meaning, which is concerned with the meaning of words, phrases, and sentences. For example, the words hide and conceal, they have the same meaning. So it could mean the same thing as conceal, just like in Elsa's song in Frozen, conceal, don't feel. So conceal could mean hide, or even if you use it interchangeably, it means the same thing. The meaning of the word fear includes the meaning of the word emotion, but not vice versa. So I'll also discuss this later para mas maintindihan with the illustration of some examples. So for example, in the sentence, Monica believes that she is a genius. So we have here the pronoun she. So let me annotate so that you could see as well. We have here the pronoun she. So because of the pronoun she, it can refer, or the sentence here, the complement na is a genius can refer to either Monica or to someone else. So it's double, ano na, dira pa lang, medyo double meaning na siya. Who is she referring to? Monica believes that si Monica, is a genius, or amo na ang pananaw niya sa sarili niya, genius siya, or she is referring to another person. Monica believes that Rachel is a genius, for example. But if you want to clear it up na you mean na Monica believes na ang sarili niya ang genius, so you could use your pronoun herself. In the sentence, Monica believes herself to be a genius, herself here can refer only to Monica. So mas klaro siya nga siya lang ang ginamindiri, or that is the only meaning of the sentence. Monica believes herself to be a genius, it refers to Monica. Sorry, so let me clear this so we could move to the next slide. So we are going to start discussing sense properties and relations. So first one, we have ambiguity. So ambiguity, under ambiguity, or what we call ambiguous words. So we call or we say that a word is ambiguous if it has more than one sense or more than one meaning. For example, in the sentence, Ricky saw a fly. Ano ba ang definition that we are referring to in the sentence Ricky saw a fly? What do you think? Does it refer to letter A, an insect, B, a zipper, or C, a ball?
An insect.
Letter
An
A,
insect, ma'am.
an insect. Sige. Other, same rin. Sila Ma'am April, sila Ma'am Sheila, A ba yun ang answer nila?
Yes, miss.
Okay.
Yes po, ma'am.
Sige. Thank you for your response. So they answered yung letter A na fly. So that is correct, but letter B and letter C are correct options as well. So So the word fly is an example of a word that is ambiguous or double meaning. More than one meaning siya. Perhaps hindi lang mas familiar sa aton ang meaning sang iban. So we will dissect it one by one. So Ricky saw a fly. A fly na letter A, an insect or what we call langaw sa aton pa na language, kumbaga. So that's one meaning already. Another is your fly pertaining to zipper. So more on medyo slang ni siya ang fly na your fly is open. Meaning your zipper is open. Kumbaga, i-zipper pasaka. So a fly here, second meaning ng fly, zipper. Kumbaga. And another, medyo technical siya siguro, perhaps you won't know this if you're not a sports fan or a ball na nang hindi ka sang very bihasa siguro in ball games. So fly there could also refer to a possession of a ball in play. So fly ball or fly. Fly na siya. Ang bola siguro. For example, nagtabog, naglampas, so on and so forth. So we have there three definitions for the word fly. So it's an example of an ambiguous word. The word fly. So I could illustrate further, let me annotate. We have the word duck. So the word duck could also be ambiguous, depende as well sa inyo. For example, it could refer to your animal. Your animal na pato, di ba? Bibe, for example, na gina-refer ta. That's one interpretation or meaning of the word duck. Or it could refer to the action, action of bending down, na duck. Diba, if you can remember, when we have earthquake drills, we are usually given the commands duck, cover, and hold. So it does not mean nga, magkuha ka pato, makover ka kag ma-hold. So what we mean there, duck, is magbend, manago sa ng safe nga place, cover, and hold. Kumbaga. So that is another example of a word that is ambiguous or has more than one meaning for ambiguity. So other than that, ambiguities are not limited to lexical level only. So lexical word level, for example, we have number 1 and 2. So we'll have number 1 first. American history teacher. So what kind of interpretations can you get from the phrase American history teacher? So I'll give you a few seconds to formulate your interpretations for number 1, American history teacher. Just unmute or raise your hand lang. Sige, Sir Awing, Michael.
Okay, ma'am, my interpretation is that an American teacher who teach a history subject.
Okay, sige. That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Michael, for your answer. Other answers pa? Who has other interpretations? Same ba with Mr. Michael ang interpretations nyo? The same lang?
Yes, Miss.
Okay, sige. Okay, si Leo. Leo also raised his hand. Sige, Leo muna and then Lidlin.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Aside
go.
from Mr. Owing's example, ma'am, American history teacher, ma'am. So I think it is referring to a teacher, ma'am. I think it is a died person or nabantay na siya, ma'am. It is referring to it. American history
Okay.
teacher.
Do legend siya, kumbaga.
Yes.
Okay, sige, sige. Thank you, Leo. Other than that, we also have Ma'am Lady and Ma'am Meryl Jane. Sige, Ma'am Lady and then Ma'am Meryl Jane.
For me, ma'am, an American history teacher is and a man American is a history teacher.
Okay. So medyo similar interpretation with Mr. Awing. Thank you, Ma'am Lady Lynn. Okay. Ma'am Meryl Jane.
For me, ma'am, a teacher that teaches American history.
Okay, sige. Thank you. So those are interesting interpretations as well. So tama. So we have there the interpretation that the teacher, the history teacher, the history teacher's nationality rather is American. Another interpretation that we have is that the teacher is teaching American history. Kumbaga. So karo ba siya? So we have there two interpretations. So for example, ano pa ba? Siguro kay Sir Leo, ano siguro? Historic. Siguro yung yung word for na nag-pass on na teacher but historic or though iconic ang teacher. Kumbaga. So those are some, but thank you as well for Sir Leo's interpretation as well. Much appreciated for the interpretation. That's interesting as well. So those are just some interpretations that you can have for the phrase na level, American history teacher. Another is the sentence, the shooting of the hunters is awful. So can you share perhaps your interpretation for the sentence? Or what meaning can you get from the sentence, the shooting of the hunters is awful?
Ma'am.
Sige po. Yes.
Um, the shooting of the hunters is awful, ma'am. So I think, ma'am, yung pagtira ng bullet ng shooter, ma'am, is very bad. For example, it is palpak siya, ma'am, ang
Okay.
pagkuhan. Parang hindi siya asintonado, ma'am.
Okay.
Parang hindi siya
Sige.
asintado,
Na-hit.
ma'am.
Kumbaga.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Sige. Thank you, Leos. Okay. Thank you for the interpretation. We have Ma'am Meryl Jane. Sige, we'll finish Ma'am Meryl Jane, Ma'am Jerlyn, Sir Michael, and Ma'am Lady's interpretations. Ma'am Meryl Jane?
For me, ma'am, nang ang na-shoot, I mean, ma'am, ang naigo sang hunters is kaluoy, nakakaawa.
Okay.
Ang mga
Sige.
victims, I mean, ma'am.
Sige. Okay. Ma'am Jerlyn?
If I am not mistaken, I think it is refers to the, to expert shooting man.
Okay po. Sige. So medyo similar as well. Sir Michael. Ay, si Ma'am Ladylyn pa pala. Sorry. Ma'am Ladylyn and then Sir Michael.
Ma'am, for me, the shooting there, ma'am, is pagpatay sa mga hunters. Bali, ang pag-interpret ko po, pagpatay sa mga hunters ay napaka-brutal or awful for
Okay.
me. That's all.
Okay. Sige. Thank you as well for the interpretation. Okay, last, Mr. Michael.
The shooting it's represented in the movie. The characters portrays Hunter really good acting. Movie, ma'am, I think.
Ay, paulit po, Sir Michael. Medyo choppy kasi. Sorry.
Ma'am, the Hunter is awful, ma'am. I think it's referring on the movie, ma'am. I think the characters
Okay.
that portray Hunters really good.
So, movie
Yes, ma'am.
setting siya. Okay. Sige. Thank you, Mr. Michael. So, thank you for
Yes,
your
ma'am.
interpretation. Sorry, na-cut off ko si Sir Michael. Medyo choppy kasi. Sige. So I got the point of Mr. Michael's interpretation as well. So we have actually 3 interpretations for the sentence, the shooting of the hunters is awful. So first one is same with Mr. Leo and the others' interpretation of the second of the sentence. The shooting of the hunters is awful. It refers to the shooting skills of the hunters. It's not on target, kumbaga, or it's not, or the hunters' shooting skills are not sharp, kumbaga. So they cannot seem to hit the target. That's why it's awful, kumbaga. So hindi nila ma-shoot or ma-hit ang target. Second is the shooting of the hunters is awful. It could be that the one being shot are the hunters. That's why it's awful or gruesome or brutal, as Ma'am Ladylyn said, if I'm correct. So there are 2 interpretations already. And lastly, that's also one interpretation, could be the interpretation as well in terms of the entertainment industry or cinematography. For example, na the act shooting there refers to the act of capturing motion picture through your video. Na the shooting of the hunters is awful or hindi na wrap up ang set because the lighting is not good. For example. So that's it. Kumbaga, nakalain ang lighting, kalain ng angle or nag-ulan, naguba ang props, so it was not wrapped up or it's not good. So we have there 3 interpretations for the sentence. So what we call that na phrasal and sentential ambiguity, we call that as your syntactic ambiguity. Phrasal for your phrase na ambiguity for the first na example, and then your sentential ambiguity for the second example, which is a sentence. So next, we have your synonymy. For synonymy naman, 2 words are synonymous. I know you are familiar already. If they are said, so 2 words are said to be synonymous if they have the same sense or meaning. For example, you have there conceal and hide, stubborn and obstinate, big and large. So aside from that, synonymy or synonyms extends to phrasal and sentential level as well. For example, you have there a beautiful girl and your letter B, a girl who is beautiful. So they have the same sense or meaning although na-rearrange ang word. Tama ba? Na beautiful girl or girl is who is beautiful, ending is gwapa ang babae. So or attractive girl. Kumbaga, that is the message. Or it contains the same sense. Next, or same with your sentences D and sentence C. So the trainer gave the dog a treat and the dog received a treat from the trainer. So although they are rearranged in the different word order, na for the first one, the trainer gave the dog a treat, the performer there or the one who executed the action, the trainer, siya ang nauna. Although in letter D, ang dog na ang nauna, for example, the recipient of the object in the sentence, ang nauna, it still contains the same meaning. Sorry. So that is for synonyms. Next, we have your hyponymy. Hyponymy naman, it is under hyponymy, a hyponym is a word that contains the meaning of another word. And then the contained word in the hyponym is known as your superordinate. So to illustrate this one better, we make use of the example Nara and tree. So the word Nara contains the meaning of the word tree. So in that, for example, in that sense, Nara is the hyponym, tree is the superordinate. So why? Because when we define Nara as a word, or if we look at its meaning, when we define Nara, we mention the word tree, any of several timber trees of the genus Pterocarpus. But when we define tree, on the other hand, a woody perennial plant having a single, the next siya. Having a single, usually elongated main stem, generally with few or no branches on its lower part. So in the definition of tree, we do not mention Nara. Although perhaps you could mention, although in the definition of Nara, of tree rather, in the definition of tree kasi, it's not exclusive to Nara lang. Since there are a lot of species of trees, hindi lang exclusive sa Nara. Kumbaga. So we have there, so ang hyponym there is your Nara, because when we define Nara, we mention the word in the definition of the definition of the word tree. But then tree is the superordinate because when you define tree, you do not necessarily mention your word Nara. For easier na pag-identify ng hyponym and your superordinate, if we are referring to something more specific in the category, like your Nara, it is the hyponym. If it's more general or belonging to a more general category, it is your superordinate. For example, we have your words pig and sow. So pig is a young domesticated swine, usually weighing less than 120 pounds or 50 kilograms. Whereas we define sow as a female pig. So can you identify what is the hyponym? Is it pig or sow? Sige, Mr. Brian, first.
Ma'am, the hyponymy is the pig is the superordinate.
Pig is the superordinate, so is your hyponym. Okay, sige. Thank you for your response, Mr. Steven Brian. Is Mr. Michael raising his hand as well? Or kaina pa na siya? Nga wala lang na na tap. Okay. Wala response, Sir Michael. Okay. So for example, for this one, as I have said, sorry. So Mr. Steven Brian's answer is correct. So our hyponym here is so, and then our superordinate here is the word pig. When we define the word so, as you can see, we mention the word pig. But on the other hand, when we define pig naman, we do not usually refer to sow in general or sows. When you define pig, hindi ka man nag-refer automatically sa female pig na yun. So as you can see in the definition, hindi man siya or hindi mo makita ang definition of the word so. Because when you define the word pig, it could refer to a male or a female na pig. Whereas yung so, mas specific siya because although it refers to a pig pa rin, it's a specific female pig. So, all general siya, mas specific na category. So, pig is your superordinate, so is your hyponym. To show this one better as well, para ma-identify nyo what is the difference between hyponym and your superordinate, here are some semantic features or characteristics of pig and so. For example, pig and so, they are both minus human because hindi sila human, they are animals. So minus human. But then, as you can see, mas damo additional characteristics or features ang so. Plus adult, because a so is a female adult na pig ng nanay na ba manog bata nga pig, kumbaga amo na ang ginaminta with the word so. That's why it's plus adult. So nga hindi pwede nga plus adult ang pig because hindi siya necessarily when we refer to pig is adult dayon na siya ang ginamin. So mas specific ni siya ang so because female adult pig. And minus male because so is a female pig as we said in the definition. Pwede po siya plus female if it's female. So it's either minus male or plus female. Either of the two. It's correct. So amo na siya ang easier way to identify rather your hyponym and your superordinate. Although your hyponym shares your similar characteristics with your superordinate, may mga additional features siya nga wala sa superordinate. Okay. Next, we have mother and woman. So can you identify naman what is the hyponym in the words mother and woman? So what is the hyponym? Is it mother or woman?
A mother, miss.
Mother, ma'am.
Mother ang hyponym and your superordinate is?
Mother, ma'am.
Woman.
Woman. Okay, so let's check. So you have there, so that's correct. Your hyponym is mother. Woman is your superordinate. Because when we define woman, for example, when we define mother, a woman who is in relation to a child to whom she has given birth, whereas woman, an adult human female. When we define woman, we don't usually define na all women are mothers, di ba? Although pareha sila na adult, but then mas specific because mas specific lang ang mother. Because when you define woman as a word, you do not mean na all adult human females who give birth. So hindi na siya woman. It's mother. Since there are adult females as well who are single, who do not have children, kumbaga. But they are adult human females, so woman lang sila. So you have there as well to show why mother is the hyponym. So both of them, woman and mother, they share the same characteristic na they are plus human and they are plus female. But then may added feature si mother, plus kin. When we say kin, kumbaga relative or relation or relating to family, for example, kaya when you say this is my mother, so it's assumed agad na related sa'yo, who is the speaker. But when you say this woman is with me, wala man gina-assume mama mo. So hindi man siya gina-assume nga relative dayon. That's why this is the hyponym, this is the superordinate. So in other words, a hyponym is a word that contains all the same feature values of another word. As you can see, same feature values plus some additional featuring or featured values. Sorry. Okay. Ano to siya? Yes. Okay. Opo. Okay. So, going back to our topic, we have antonymy. So antonymy or antonyms, two words are antonyms if their meanings differ only in the value for a single semantic feature or if they are opposite in meaning or sense, kumbaga. So we have the following examples of your antonyms: dead and alive, hot and cold, and we have above and below. So we also have three types of antonymy or antonyms: your binary, gradable, and converse. So for example, for binary antonyms, these are pairs of words that have the opposite meaning aside from that, but they represent two opposite possibilities. Binary antonyms, on the other hand, naman, they have no middle ground. For example, we have the antonyms, your antonyms here, dead and alive. So this is an example of binary antonyms, dead and alive, because there is no middle ground. Either dira ka lang sa dead or dira ka sa alive. Hindi ka pwede magambal nga, ay hindi lang anang na siya ilubong, medyo patay lang man na siya. So wala na siya sang medyo-medyo when it comes to binary antonyms. It's either you are this one or you are this one. It's either you are dead or you are alive. Hindi mo pwede mahambal medyo patay, medyo buhi. Kumbaga. So it's either you are dead or alive. When we say binary antonyms, walang middle ground. Either dira ka lang gid sa isa. Kung yes, yes lang. Kung no, no. Kumbaga. On the other hand, we have your gradable antonyms na kumbaga is the opposite of your binary. Kung ang binary antonyms walang middle ground, gradable antonyms naman describe relationships along a continuum. You can grade them or may middle ground pa kumbaga. So we have here your antonyms or your words, pair of words such as hot and cold. So this is an example of gradable antonyms because pwede mo pa siya or may ara pa sang medyo middle ground. For example, from cold, you have your lukewarm, and then after lukewarm, you have your warm, and then your hot. Kumbaga. So may ara pa sang tunga. Nga lamig, maligamgam lang nga tubig, ano pa dira. So init or init-init na gid. So pwede siya ma-grade, kumbaga. May continuo. So that is an example for gradable antonyms. On the other hand, we also have the third type, which is the converse antonyms, pairs that describe a relationship in which both opposites must exist. For the antonyms or for the words to exist, the other must exist as well. For example, is your antonyms na you have here. Sorry. You have there your words above and below. Hindi pwede nga mag-above lang, or for example, below will exist if may arasang above. May up kung may down, kumbaga. So for example, as well, so we have 10 minutes left. Sorry for that. So it should, or both opposites must exist, kumbaga. So you have there, if may buyer, dapat may. If may buyer, ano dapat ang mag-exist para may opposite siya?
Seller.
Seller.
Seller. Okay, so that's one example as well. Okay. So that's also correct. So next, so this is just some tests, kumbaga, para ma-identify the different types of synonyms. But don't worry, we will not dwell on that so much. Okay, so bilisan na lang natin kasi parang umuulan na or uulan na dito sa school. So don't worry, since recorded naman, I will post this as well later. So next we have reference. So referent is the entity identified by the use of a referring expression. For example, you are standing in your backyard and you point to a maya. For example na lang, dugangan ko na lang ha, na for example, ang backyard nyo is pang birds ang tawari ang iya nga effect. Mahilig magtambay ang birds sa inyo nga backyard or likod balay. So for example, there is a maya there and you say to your sister or to your brother, that bird looks sick. So the referent in the referring expression or in the sentence, that bird looks sick, that bird is the particular maya you are pointing at. For example, may nagpatong dira nga maya, parot kag pabo, for example lang, and then you point to the maya. That bird looks sick. Out of the three birds, you point to the maya, so that bird could refer only to the maya that or the particular bird you are pointing at. So that is the referent, that bird. Diin dito sa tatlo nga bird, diin dito ang ginatudlo mo. So it's if it's the maya, then sa iya naga-refer tong that bird looks sick, kumbaga. So very easy lang for referent. Next, for prototype, It's a typical member of the extension of a referring expression. For example, the prototypes of bird are Maya, robin, bluebird, woodpecker. Those are prototypes or extensions, examples of the word bird. For example, if I ask you what is the prototype of color, what are some prototypes of color that you can enumerate or list? Anyone?
Black, ma'am.
Okay, that's correct. Another?
Red.
Red. Yellow. And other colors pa dira kung ano man. So prototype kumbaga it's like green, for example. So prototype kumbaga is like playing the si apple. Kumbaga you give examples or list examples of words included tiga-tiga ba, sorry. So take two, included in that category rather. Sorry. So for bird, for example, Maya, robin, bluebird, woodpecker, so mga social labi nga bird no. So mga pabo or your turkey, for example, ostrich, penguin. So if you are asked to give a prototype of emotions naman, so you can enumerate your joy, sadness, anger, frustration, and so on and so forth. So next, stereotype refers to a list of characteristics naman describing a prototype. If kanina, list of examples or extensions, stereotype naman refers to characteristics. For example, the stereotype of bird might be some of the following stereotypes. So characteristics, has 2 legs and 2 wings, has feathers, is about 6 to 8 inches from head to toe, makes a chirping noise, and lays eggs. So this, all of this are stereotypes of the word bird. So if I ask you what are the stereotypes of noun naman, you could answer that a name of a place. Ano pa ang pwede na stereotype aside from that? For noun, a name of a place. What other stereotypes can you give? A name of a person,
Event.
a name of an event, a thing, or kung ano pa dira. So those are stereotypes, characteristics. Kumbaga, it could be written in capital or small letters, depende. Depende siya kung proper or common noun, so on and so forth. Next, co-reference naman. So these are two linguistic expressions that have the same extra-linguistic referent. For example, in the sentence, the Earth is the third planet from the Sun. When we say that, the expressions there or the phrases, the Earth and then the third planet from the Sun are co-referential because they both refer to the same thing. So what is the third planet from the Sun?
Earth.
Earth. What is Earth naman?
The third planet from
The third planet from the
the
sun. So they are co-referential because they refer to each other. So for example, let me annotate another text. So we have here. For example, in the sentence, Jose Rizal is the national hero of the Philippines. What is the co-referential expressions there? What are the co-referential expressions that we have?
Jose Rizal and the national hero.
Okay, that's correct. So Jose Rizal and national hero or national hero of the Philippines. So they both refer to each other. It goes back to each other naman. Either you mean national hero of the Philippines, kay Jose Rizal, who is Jose Rizal in the sentence, national hero of the Philippines. So co-referent, kumbaga, na expressions. Okay, so that is the end of our discussion for semantics. Are there any questions or clarifications? Violent reactions.
No, ma'am.
Nan, naintindihan naman ang lesson for today?
Ma'am.
Yes po, Miss.
Okay, so very good. So for today or for this discussion, we won't have an activity for this one since we still have our last topic next week. So dito na lang ako maghatag sang activity. So you won't have any activity for the subject for the week. But ano na lang, announcement na lang. So for Thursday or Friday, since today is the department or our college's last day for synchronous session. So tomorrow you won't have your synchronous session for this subject. So just work on answering your activities for the other subjects para hindi na maglagas sa 11:59 na deadline, 11:59 p.m. And also on Friday, I believe we will have the Aberclase program. So just stay tuned sa Facebook group ng college in order to be aware of the announcement and for the mechanics, perhaps for your attendance in attending the said event. So aside from that, I believe September 9 and 10, which is next week, Thursday, Friday, is our prelim exam for this academic school year. So heads up na lang para you are informed as well. So okay na po ba? Kaya daw nagagaloom na gidiri sa part namon.
Opo, ma'am. Thank
Wala
you
namang
po.
questions and clarifications. So if none, you can leave
Okay,
na
ma'am.
po. Thank you for your participation today. Stay safe, guys. I'll just upload the recorded session.